What happens when the whispers of your intuition are louder than you realize, but you still don't listen? Welcome back to the TrailBLAZER Pod. I'm your host, Faye, and each week I bring you stories of Jewish women paving bold paths. In this episode, Dr. Zahava Berkowitz, founder of Ima Acupuncture, reflects on the quiet signals she once brushed aside, the life-altering choices that followed, and the moment she finally understood her inner guidance had been trying to steer her all along. And when she did trust that inner voice, she went on to create a thriving, healing-centered practice, helping others reconnect with themselves. It's a story about self-awareness, trust, and the power of finally tuning in. Let's dive in. Zahava, welcome to the TrailBLAZER Pod. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I have to say, when I found your business's Instagram and I stalked it, and then of course yours, it's just such lightness that you managed to bring with like serious topics. So I just want to say it's a really good job on that. Whoever's doing your social media, I don't know if it's you or somebody else, but amazing job.
Yes, thank you to Chelsea. She's our office manager who
Okay.
she comes up with all the fun ideas and she'll come in and say like, "Okay, I need you to jump up and down 5 times." And I just do whatever she says. But we do have a lot of fun because there is a lot of heaviness and
Yeah.
seriousness, in the day to day. So we have to, enjoy our lives. That's what it's all about. So, and I think our patients appreciate our humor and creating
Yeah.
like a warm, fun environment.
Yeah, it does feel like it's meant for a community that already knows you guys, and
Yeah.
whoever finds you, it's a very fine balance between the joy and like the serious stuff. So shout out Chelsea. Um, so I want to start from the very beginning to understand because you have a really interesting journey of pivoting and rebranding and figuring out stuff in the professional world, but also that comes from personal stuff. And so to understand that, I like to go back all the way. So can you share what was Zahava like as a little kid?
Yeah, I think I was like a really happy, positive, like little kid, creative and fun, and always had a lot of friends. And I grew up in New Jersey and have like amazing parents. So yeah, childhood was great. But I think for me, one of the core kind of first beliefs I had about myself as a child was that, I'm not capable in some way because I did struggle with learning. So I think that's one, when you go back and you're like, what was that first core belief that you've had
Yeah.
that's just negative, that is like, feels so absolutely 100% true. So
Yeah.
for me, that was definitely, struggling in school, struggling with learning. And that's been a huge kind of challenge that has definitely like helped me in a lot of ways to get to where I am.
Yeah, and you do talk about on your social media about how you didn't think you were the type of person to be successful. And I'm curious, were these things that people were telling you, or it was this message that you created for yourself by comparing yourself to other people?
I think there was like a little bit of both for sure. Like I definitely had a story about myself as we all do, but when I was in kindergarten, I couldn't go to first grade with all my friends. I had to repeat kindergarten. Even from an early age, I felt like the adults in my life, didn't really believe in me. I was like pulled out for every class, for every resource room and every support and
Yeah.
tutor. And what was great is my parents never made me feel bad. Like if I came home and I got horrible grades, like as long as you tried, like they,
Mhm.
it's not like they put pressure on me, but I felt maybe I put some pressure on
Yeah.
myself and carried a lot of shame about that.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to start from this is because you really rewrote the narrative for yourself and like the where you're sitting, the seat you're sitting in today is so different from the things that either you were told or told yourself. And so I thought it would be a really interesting way to start from like it's so fascinating when a little kid grows up that way and then many years later it's a whole different like book
Yeah.
basically, right?
I just heard this really funny thing on social media. I guess I was scrolling and it was these two sisters that were talking about how A students always end up working for C students. And they were
Yes.
saying how the oldest sister, of course, was Miss Perfectionist,
Hmm.
got good grades, and the younger sister like struggled in school. But now in life, the younger sister is more successful and willing to take more risk because she's not afraid of failure because she's used to
Yeah.
it. And it's not this big scary thing. So I think there is something inherently good about being a bad student because again like you're used to failure, you're used to trying and it not working out, and so
Right.
then I guess when you're an adult that's just it's normal.
Such a good point. Okay, so we're gonna pivot for a second because obviously this is a podcast by Jewish woman to Jewish women, and you wrote a beautiful post about your grandparents and how they're Holocaust survivors. And so I'm wondering if you can share how your Jewish upbringing, specifically that part, really shaped your sense of like purpose and resilience. And resilience, I think, is a big theme in your life.
Yes, I work with a business coach. She calls me the queen of tenacity.
Love it.
Because like I will just like hold on and not let go.
Wait, maybe
Um
that's the title of this episode.
yeah, oh
Zahava, I'm being the queen of tenacity. I love it.
I love that too. So yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because I mean, I grew up in New Jersey where a lot of my friends, all of our grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and that felt very normal.
Right.
But when I moved to the Midwest, I that's something that's really unique about me. Where in the Midwest, I noticed a lot of the Jews here, their parents, grandparents, great grandparents are from Chicago. So that's new to me. But my grandparents, I mean, there's really not one day that I go by in my life and don't think about my grandparents and what they've went through and the loss that they've had. Actually, when I was in my 20s, I was part of a genetic study where they were taking blood from the children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. And
Wow.
what it showed was that our genes have been altered. So when people go through starvation, it turns on certain genes. So our bodies are more likely to store glucose. So therefore, even the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors are more likely to have certain comorbidities like diabetes, obesity, anxiety, depression. So to me, it's yes, I feel emotionally impacted by the
Yeah.
Holocaust and what my grandparents went through, but it's also in our genes, like in our DNA and hardwired in us. So, but my grandparents, they really taught me hard work because again, they all came to America with nothing, with absolutely nothing, and built lives for themselves. And all four of my grandparents are survivors. There was not one great grandparent that survived, which is eight great grandparents being murdered for being
Horrible.
Jewish. And I think when you grow up knowing that this happened to my family, you grow up knowing bad things happen, but
Yeah.
also to be grateful for every little thing that you have and what really matters. And I think my parents and grandparents did an amazing job at teaching, me and my siblings what hard work is. You have to work hard for the things you get and also how to value things
Yeah.
and what good values are. So there's like really my family's not materialistic. We don't value materialism. And I really think that comes from my grandparents.
Yeah. I love that you shared that study because I didn't know that part. Like it's literally imprinted in our DNA. That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
There's a book called It Didn't Start With You, and it's
Ah.
about ancestral trauma. And I don't even know if the author's Jewish or not. Like, it wasn't a Jewish book, but they study Holocaust survivors in
Because
the
how
book.
can you not, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that makes so much sense. Wait, I'll check that out.
yeah.
That's fascinating.
It's incomprehensible, honestly.
Yeah.
It really is. And, there's so many lessons to take away of like, especially with the current climate of what's going on. It's like, am I going to do whatever I can to stand up for the Jewish people, really? Because it's
Yeah.
that existential for us. It's so
Yes.
real and visceral.
Yeah. I think we're wearing a similar necklace. So
I was
I
gonna,
love that.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Okay, so when you were 17, 18, you're going through those talks in your head about I don't think I'm going to be successful, maybe this is not for me. What were you thinking your career path is going to be?
I generally was one of those kids that didn't know.
Okay,
I was
fair.
also one of those kids that like I never like dreamed about like my wedding or getting married and having kids. It's like
Same.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
I definitely always though knew that I was different. I always felt different. I always questioned the societies around me and the
Interesting.
yeah, like kind of beliefs around me. So I think there was something about me that always loved going against the status quo, going against the grain, being like a little countercultural. So that like being different kind of excites me.
Yeah.
And so I knew one day I'm going to do something and it's going to be really cool and really different. And then I
Well,
did. Yeah.
yes. Like Chinese medicine, acupuncture, all that stuff. We're gonna talk about like the myths about that in a little bit. But how did you discover that? How did you decide this is the thing that I'm gonna do and it's different and it's cool and this is me?
Yeah, so it's so funny because it didn't even start, like my acupuncture career didn't start at all by me wanting to be different. But I have to say, in life, whenever I've done things that are the norm or conventional, or I'm doing something because I think other people want this from me, it has never once worked out for me. And so, as most people, first of all, being raised as a Jewish girl, I was raised to be a nice Jewish girl. And then, you go through the things like you go to this school, you do have these, this is the list of like 5 careers you should have. And definitely like be nice, be good. And so there wasn't really, I would say, that I had a strong sense of self in my teen and early 20s. And so I was trying so hard to be a good girl. And that led me down a lot of the wrong places.
Wow.
That took me away from, being true to myself. So, 2 big examples that really did shape, my path to acupuncture. One was, when I went to Israel after high school, we go to Israel for the year to seminary. And within like the first week, I was kicked out of school. And it's, we can laugh about it now, but at the time it was so like horrific because I was such a good girl. And then I did just like normal things that teenagers do. And then I got this like horrible reputation, and it made people question me of like, was I faking it all along? Was I this bad girl? And so for me, it was the first time where I'm like, oh, I'm not in control of the narrative of what other people think of me. And like, I tried so hard. So instead of me kind of embracing that of like, oh, well, who cares what people think of me? I know I'm good. I was like, I'm going to work extra hard at being good. So then I really doubled down on becoming, I don't know, like a better, what I believe to be a better person, a better Jew, and do the things that, everyone wanted from me, which at the time the messaging was like, get married and have kids. And so I was dating the way I was supposed to date and doing, checking all the boxes and doing all of those things of really just trying to be like a good girl and show everyone like, look how good I am. Like, but of course that doesn't work because I was not being true to myself. And at the time I had whispers about my life, but I didn't understand that those whispers were my intuition, my inner guidance. And instead I was just like ignoring those things and using my head. So I ended up getting married to someone who I should not have married. And I even remember like having these little voices of like, I don't know about this. Like, I'm really nervous. And I would even tell people like, I'm really nervous. And I was like, oh, it's normal. It's normal. Looking back, I'm like, oh, it was 100% my intuition like screaming at me, but I just didn't have the skill set to know that yet.
And I think that's so common. It's so normal.
Totally. And these are like normal things anybody in their teen and 20s would go through. But unfortunately, it was like in the context of marriage. So I ended up getting married to somebody who, like, if I wasn't religious, I probably would have like dated and it would have been a bad boyfriend and you would move on,
You would learn quickly.
You would learn quickly. Yeah. So here it was like I had to learn kind of the hard way. And that's a whole nother podcast episode, that drama. But after that too, now I'm like in my young 20s and I'm divorced and everyone's talking about me, whispering and, what about your reputation? So that's like another theme, I think, from childhood was like this idea of like, you want to have a good reputation. And so the lesson wasn't necessarily growing up, make good choices, use your inner wisdom with your guidance, like do what's right for you. It was like, do what's acceptable for other people. And so that's what I was using to guide me during these years. And it did not work. And so after that, I'm like, okay, I really have to do major self-discovery because first of all, who am I? And how did I even get myself here? Like, how on earth did this happen to me? And how am I going to get myself out of this mess? Because at this point, I actually cannot care anymore what people think about me because it does not work for me. And every time I make choices for other people, it has always been the wrong choice for me. So it allowed me certain freedoms to really just then go for the life I want to have and not care. But what led me to acupuncture was I was like so ill after these experiences, like these few years. It was like very traumatic. And there's a saying in alternative medicine, like the body keeps the score, which is a very popular book. It's behind me on my shelf, of how our bodies hold on to trauma and to things that we've been through. And so after my divorce, I was like 90 pounds, not eating, anxious, depressed, getting skin infections, I had chronic bronchitis. So a friend had told me, you should get acupuncture. I started going because I was having headaches and period pain and IBS. And my acupuncturist told me it's all connected. So I'm like, Oh my God, that's so interesting. I wonder if like me being sick all the time is connected to like what I've been through in my life. And I just had no clue
Yeah.
that my physical body had any connection to like the stress that I was
Yeah.
experiencing. So
Interesting.
that's what led me to acupuncture. And
Okay.
my first acupuncturist was like an Orthodox Jewish woman named Miriam, who I'm still in touch with.
That's so
But
cute.
I think that also helped guide me
Right.
to the career. Yeah.
I love that it was really such a obviously hard, and I'm sorry that you went through that, but such a natural path to finding your passion because it really applied to your life, and I think that shows in your work because it's a personal thing to you. It's not like you went through like the book and you're like, this is something that I think I can do. It really was something you experienced, and I also want to thank you for sharing that because that's a lot to go through in your 20s. I think sometimes this is a hard way to say it because I think sometimes it's a blessing in disguise when you go
Yeah.
through it so young because then you have basically the rest of your life to,
Oh my
you
God.
know, work off that as opposed to, some people only figure this out at 40, 50, 60, sometimes never, right?
Oh, I'm so lucky. And I had a friend at the time. It's just funny because I was like always the old, because I had repeated kindergarten, I was the oldest in my grade always.
Yeah.
And so my friend said at the time, she's like, Zahava, you were the first to get bat mitzvahed, you were the first to get married, and now you're just the first one of us to get divorced. And it made me laugh.
That's
I
so
still
cute.
think about it because
Yeah.
it's true. It's like eventually 50% of us go through a divorce. It's normal at
Yeah.
this point, unfortunately. And, I don't see it as a bad thing personally. I think, like, my husband's parents are divorced. They're so with the people they're meant to be. It's like
Yeah.
such a blessing that we can do
Yeah.
that, and especially in
100%.
our culture. So, but yeah, being so young, number one, not having children, I really am so, so, so
Yeah.
lucky. But I was able to rebuild, from nothing. Like I had no confidence, no self-trust. Because here it's like, how did I get myself into these situations?
Yeah.
I should have known better. I should have done better. I should, I shoulda, shoulda, shoulda. And so I really like became very engrossed in the alternative health world, not just with acupuncture, but I also started learning about yoga and meditation and affirmations. And I would go to the local library and like get out books about these things. And I just started learning and
Yeah.
from scratch, like built confidence. And I think my main takeaway from this too is that everything in life is a skill that anyone can develop. I'm like,
Mm.
if I can do it, anyone can do it. So people think I'm not confident, I'm shy, I'm not extroverted, whatever. It's all just skill building at the end of the day. And so
Yeah.
you can build resilience, you can build courage, you can build bravery. These are things that
Yeah.
we can all cultivate.
Yeah. I love that. So for those of us who don't know, what is acupuncture?
Great question. Yeah. So acupuncture falls under the umbrella of traditional Chinese medicine. So Chinese medicine has been around for over 2,000 years. And basically, what we do is we work on the nervous system. So when you think of a physical therapist, you think of the muscles. When you think of acupuncture, you think of the nervous system. In today's modern age, right, we're all walking around extremely stressed out. So acupuncture helps move our nervous system out of that fight or flight stress state into what we call your parasympathetic system, the
Mm.
rest and digest. So when I was experiencing so much anxiety, stress, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, right? And I was in poor health. So acupuncture without me having to do anything. So I think that's also a nice thing is it
Mm.
requires nothing of the client. Like I didn't have to think my way through it. Like in therapy, I was
Right.
in therapy and I did that also, but here it was like a place that I can go where I just lie on a table with
Yeah.
nice music, some heat on me, and rest. And the acupuncture does all of the rest. And so it
Yeah.
helps reset your body and your nervous system to function optimally. So thereby, we increase circulation, lymphatic flow. We help with heart rate variability. So there's a lot of measures that you can measure how acupuncture is effective and successful.
I've always wanted to try it. And I know I read on your page that you do take insurance, right?
Yep.
And yeah, which is really cool because like that's the reason why I don't do it is because I can't find a place that takes insurance.
What we do is acupuncture is also, I didn't even mention this, but we basically, it's the use of single sterile
Mm.
needles in the body at specific points in the body. Each point has a specific function and action that it does. And this is mapped out in the brain. So if you were to get an MRI and you would get acupuncture, it would show what's happening in the brain and how is it affecting the body. Our clinic, so we really want to make this accessible to people. And one of the ways is through insurance, and acupuncture is becoming more and more integrative into mainstream medicine, which is wonderful. So certain plans, I would say half our clinic is self-pay and half is insurance. But it's a lot of work for our small clinic to take insurance, but it is so worth it because it helps more people to get more treatments.
Yeah, and it normalizes it and it makes it more, like you were saying, accessible.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking Chinese medicine. There's a lot of myths that go around Chinese medicine. Can you share what like the most common ones are and maybe debunk them for us?
Oh, of course. There's a lot.
Yeah.
But I'll say in general, like the main one would be that acupuncture doesn't work, or it's like some voodoo, hippie, whatever, crunchy granola medicine. Couldn't be further from the truth. And it kind of goes into the conversation we were having, at least for me, which is I have chosen a career after all the things I've been through that people do not understand. When I told people I'm going to become an acupuncturist, they were like, why aren't you becoming a PA? Why aren't you becoming a nurse practitioner or like, you know, speech or OT? Or they could not understand the choice I was making. And, you know, you still have to, it kind of prepared me in a way because then I became an acupuncturist and now I have people tell me all the time that they don't believe in what I do. And so you have to, I think, to be confident and successful in this world is you really have to learn to not care what other people think and to just stay your ground. Like I used to need to prove acupuncture works. So when I first became an acupuncturist, at every Shabbos meal I went to, for example, people would be like, you're an acupuncturist? Like, does that work? Like, I heard it doesn't work. Like, whatever it is. And whatever their story was. And I would spend the hours at a meal convincing people of its efficacy. Now I just don't care because I have a successful clinic.
Yeah.
I've proven to myself the proof is in the pudding. And also there's always going to be people who don't believe, and that's fine. And the coolest thing is you don't need to believe in acupuncture for it to work because it works. So that's the most common misconception is acupuncture is proven to work. It is studied. Like our clinic, we're part of an organization called Evidence-Based Acupuncture, where we show like studies there. On my website, I have studies about acupuncture. So to me, it doesn't even bother me anymore if people think it doesn't work. We help thousands of people every year. It's good enough for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And also you were saying this kind of goes back to the spirit of who you are. Like just because it's not the norm for everyone, the norm doesn't work for you though. You have your own norm, right? And so it feeds back to little Zahava.
Yeah.
What works for everyone doesn't work for you, and what works for you, you know. So I think
and these people, they'll come to us once they're in bad enough pain. So the people who are telling me, I don't believe in it, blah, blah, blah. Like they're always the ones to call me in the middle of the night that they were having like acute back pain. They can't move and like they're desperate. They'll try anything. So, you know.
Yeah. So, you know, I have some women on here, you know, with medical backgrounds and whatever, and some of them have their own practices like you do. And a point that like one of the women made was like, not only do I have a clinical background or not only do I have a medical degree, but I'm also a business owner, right?
Yeah.
And they're almost like, it's like when a creative person becomes a business owner, it's like almost two separate things. And so adding on top of that, you're a woman, you're a Jewish woman, you're a Jewish Orthodox woman. I'm curious, like, do you ever find that those parts, do they butt head, or do you find a way to integrate those different sides of yourself?
I find they butt heads personally.
Yeah? Okay.
I always keep it real. Like,
okay, I love that.
Yeah, I think me even a few years ago would tell you like, oh, it's great to be a clinician and a business owner. I really struggle with this. As you said, I'm like, I have 3 kids at home. I'm running this business. I have to do homework and pack lunches. And I have employees that I'm managing. And then I'm supposed to also care for all of these patients. Like something to me doesn't add up that you can do everything successfully. Like how can you, we all have so many roles, whether it's like wife, mom, sister, daughter, business owner, employee, employer, whatever it is. There is no way everyone's batting 100. I don't believe it. I think I fight against this so much because social media has us believe otherwise, where we all follow like the mom perfect business owner who's like also feeding their kids organic. It's like, no. So I really push back on these kind of like portraying women as being like anything but perfect. I really struggle. I think being a clinician is a very specific set of skills. When you're a clinician, You have to be extremely analytical. So, first of all, you're listening to somebody, and while you're listening, you're collecting data in your mind and you're coming up with a differential diagnosis. Okay, I think it could be these three patterns. Now, what
Mm.
questions am I going to ask to solidify my diagnosis? What diagnostic tools do I have to say that this is going to be the right treatment plan? How do I
Yeah.
communicate this with the patient? Track that they're getting better. It is such a specific skill set. Being a business owner is a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
It's like being a business owner is okay. I do my own QuickBooks, right? So it's like managing our budget, our QuickBooks, what we could afford, doing payroll, inventory, staff meetings.
Yeah.
It encompasses so much, and there's so many moving pieces. I didn't even mention like marketing your own business, building referral relationships. It is such a full-time job on its
Yeah.
own. I find that being both is extremely, extremely difficult. And I've done it for many, many years and I've gotten burnt out many,
Yeah.
many times. So I say this so if anyone's listening and in this position, not to follow my suit. And I've slowly been giving up my role as a clinician. If I really felt so passionate and strongly about being a clinician, then I would, yeah, hire probably more admin
Hmm.
people to run the business. But I enjoy running the business. I enjoy
Do
growing
you
a
enjoy it
business.
more? So you're saying you enjoy it more than being a clinician, or?
My favorite thing about being a clinician is relationships.
Mm.
So like that's
Right.
my number one. Outside of my relationships, yeah, I think being a clinician, you know what I've realized actually from having amazing clinicians work for me is that I would rather hire the best clinicians in the world, which I 100% believe the clinicians in my clinic are the best.
I love
And so
it.
I'd rather have them. I know 100% I trust them. Our patients are getting the absolute best care. And I know that if I'm also running the business, when I'm a clinician, they're not getting 100% of me.
Right.
And that doesn't feel an integrity for me. I
That
don't
makes so much
want to
sense.
collect $1 from somebody if I don't feel like I'm giving them the absolute best
Mm.
treatment. And over the years, after like giving thousands of treatments, it's become harder and harder for me to like give that 100% to every patient.
Yeah.
But what I can do is build a really successful business that's going to help a lot of people, and they're going to be in the best hands with the best clinicians.
That's so
And
cool.
build my business in other ways to help even more people. So if I want to have a bigger impact, it's very hard to do one on one in a clinical treatment setting.
That makes so much sense. So, how do you feel about the word balance? Having said all that, balance is thrown around all the time now, and I love asking this because some women are like, balance is everything. Balance is my favorite word in the dictionary. And then some women are like, I don't believe in balance. I don't like that word. We should take it out. So I'm just curious where you stand on that.
I think if someone, for people who have a private practice, it depends on the size of their practice.
Hmm.
I think when you have a smaller practice, it's easier to be a clinician in your business. I think when your practice gets bigger, it becomes
Right.
harder. So I just want to say that.
Yeah.
I will give a very Chinese medicine answer because that is my field and my expertise. Is 100% I believe in balance because that is yin yang. So
Right.
the whole of Chinese medicine is based on this concept of yin and yang, of
The black
lightness
and the
and
white, right?
darkness, the
Yeah.
black and the white. And if you notice in the symbol, right, there's always blackness within white and whiteness
And
within
white.
black. So it goes on and on and on. And so I do believe in balance. I don't think that we should be walking around completely dysregulated. Like I think our nervous systems need to have balance. We should have balanced diets. But so I do believe in balance, but maybe the definition to me looks different to other people.
Right, right.
Like people assume I'm like eat so healthy and this that. I'm like, no way. Like I love chocolate. I love, I love cake and junk food. And so to me, like that's good balance. And what am I doing that can and I can enjoy my life. And so it's such a unique journey. So to me,
Right.
balance is like there is no balance that's like a one fit solution for everyone. It's like you have to know yourself really well and what feels
Right.
balanced to you. So I started to try to balance by treating only 2 days a week instead of 4 days a week. So I felt more balanced. But then as the clinic grew, it felt unbalanced because I
Right.
had more administrative work to do. So balance to me is always evolving and
Mm.
changing. And that's why the yin yang symbol is a curve in the middle and it's a circle because it's
Uh,
always changing. It's not static. When
Static.
when anything is static, that means it's not balanced. And the
Balance.
yin and
Okay.
yang principles
Yeah.
is so there has to be certain things that are static, which are foundational, and certain things that are dynamic and move and flow. So to me, I'm always changing. My patients at this point all know my schedule, depending on the season, the year, whatever, is going to be different because I
Yeah.
have different needs. My kids have different needs. I always have to be changing.
I think that's a great answer, and I do love that you brought it back to, your work. You really you're really I can see you're really living and believing what you're doing. It's not just like a service you're providing to people, which is really cool. Your practice went through a rebranding, right? That's, I think, as a business owner, as a founder, as anyone, that's scary. You're doing something one way for a long time and then it changes. And I'm curious how you knew it was time to do that, and like how did it evolve your clinic and your business?
I really love talking about the rebrands because to me, it really symbolizes a lot of the like personal growth that I've gone through
Yeah.
in this journey of having this
Yeah.
business. So our business was called Chicago Family Acupuncture. Why? Because it was really born out of a lot of fear and scarcity. When
Okay.
I graduated school, I knew I'm going to start my own business. Like I just knew I wanted my own practice right away. And so I literally graduated like had my LLC within a month,
I love it.
and I sat and was trying to come up with business names as we all do, and it feels exciting and branding and all of that stuff that really is not as important to, I think, a business than people think. But I named the business Chicago Family Acupuncture because I'm like, I want to be for everyone. I don't want to leave anyone out. Like, basically, I was desperate for business and desperate for clients.
Right. Which makes
Because
sense.
which makes sense. I had $0. I literally started my business with nothing.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford rent. So it's
Yeah.
like I couldn't afford my first box of needles.
Yeah.
It's really just like started with nothing. I remember I put enough money from my personal bank account into a Chase business account that wouldn't like so I wouldn't have overdraft fees.
Yes.
So that was like okay, that's the money. And I made my first dollar, reinvested, reinvested, reinvested. And so to me, I feel like the rebrand was coming from a place of I've outgrown some of these fears that I used to have. So when I started the business, I needed clients. It was
Right.
like survival. So it's like I am going to just like put myself out there. I don't care if I look stupid. I don't care if I fail. The only worst thing that could possibly happen to me is me not giving this business my all and like trying my hardest. So I really like put myself in like embarrassing situations, like weird. I would go to like weird events, networking, whatever, just trying anything and everything. And so I thought I was being really strategic to name my business Chicago Family Acupuncture. Why? Because for SEO, when you type in acupuncture, it's like I have the location, I have what service I'm doing, and I have
Right.
who I'm treating.
It's very smart.
So I do think it was really smart. I think it was actually really smart. Where it
Yeah.
was like for that time for starting this business was like, yep, I treat families, I'm in Chicago, and I provide acupuncture services. I also felt like it was professional enough for doctors to want to send business to me. I've always wanted to work with other physicians and healthcare professionals. And I felt like if my practice was named like Yin Yang Chi, balance, whatever, that a lot of the practices are named in this area, that I wouldn't be taken as seriously. So
Got
that was
it.
part of the strategy. And it totally worked. Like I
Right.
built my business with this name, but there was always something a little bit gnawing at me of wanting to do more, wanting the business to be more than just an acupuncture clinic and providing one-on-one services. But I wanted to build out, I have big dreams. I wanted to build out an online community. I want to
Good for
build,
you.
yeah, I just have other things that I started to really like speak to me. And by the way, these things have always been in me. And through inner work, I'm realizing like, no, this is like what God wants from me is I wouldn't have all these big dreams if I wasn't supposed to be doing it. That's how I feel.
It
So
wouldn't even cross your mind.
it wouldn't cross my mind. It wouldn't be like, and also most people in my position, most people, they have a successful acupuncture practice or any small practice for any business. And their next step is, oh, I'll open a second location.
Mm.
And it's like, I have no desire to do that. So I know it's not what I'm meant to do. And like opening a second location would be all the stressors that I don't want to have that I currently have. It's like but I do have these other hopes and dreams. And I'm like, no, this is like what I'm going to allow to guide me and to trust this voice, because I've noticed through the business, when I trust this tiny
Yeah.
little voice, it will always work out. And when I don't, it will never work
Yeah.
out, basically.
But I love this literally ties back to the beginning of a conversation where you're like 20 and you're listening to everything everyone else wants for you and
Uh-huh.
you're getting married to the wrong person because you were like, no, don't like I don't want to listen to you. And
Yeah.
then now look at you now, like your intuition is what's guiding. You're basically seeing it from a different lens. Like if I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this, it must be something that I should do or at least try, right? Let's try and see what it's going to be.
I think, yeah, one of the things I learned in business the hard way for sure was to really trust myself.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people always giving me advice.
Yes.
And I realized early on through failures and mistakes that I am the only person that lives with the consequences of any of these
Yeah.
choices. So it might as well be on my term. And then when I fail, it's like, okay, no problem. But to listen to other people and then be stuck in a situation, like the example I give is my father and my brother, who are both business people and great at finance, they 100% have my best interest in mind and try to give me the best advice they can give. When I got my current clinic location, it was very expensive for me. And I said, like, I don't know if I could afford it. I don't know. This is the space. I don't know if I could afford it. I was just like really like stressed about the money. And they're like, you can afford it. You can afford it. They're telling me, like, they saw this is how I'm going to grow my practice is by having a bigger location. Like, if I was in 2 treatment rooms before. So you have there's a capacity to how much you can treat. The only way forward is to have more treatment rooms. But it didn't seem obvious to me at the time because of the money. And so what happens? I trust them. I signed the lease. I didn't sleep for a year. In the end, they were right, by the way. Like in the end, like I didn't need this location, but I realized like I was so stressed about the money and covering my rent and my other expenses, but they're sleeping. They're not worried about me. They're all sleeping at night. They're not stressed. But I spent a year stressed out of my mind, like literally losing sleep and crying about like, did I make the wrong decision? Also, I signed a 7-year lease. So it was like I have to make this work. And the pressure of that felt tremendous. And it was a huge risk. It was a huge risk. But I really learned like I'm the only person that lives with the consequences. I'm also the only person that can see my business holistically. So if somebody looks at my QuickBooks, they can see a lot about my business, but they don't see the whole picture. They don't see my relationship with my employees, for example. Like they don't see the ins and outs or how my industry works or what are like normal standards in my industry or how insurance works or so there's only one person who sees every aspect of the business, and that's me. So it's like if there's something that doesn't feel quite right to me, I've learned at this point not to do that thing that I'm uncomfortable with because I'm the only one who has the data, But going back to the rebrand, it was like this little inner voice gnawing at me of like, I want to build this and I can't build my next thing under this business name.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. At the time, I thought I wanted other services. So I had a physical therapist. I was trying to hire a massage therapist. Through trial and error, I realized that's not what I want. And that's also not what works for my business model. So I didn't quite know, but I just knew I wanted to rebrand and be something greater. I wanted to be limitless. And Chicago Family Acupuncture felt very limiting to me and I had outgrown it. One of the business names that I had toyed with before I even got Chicago Family Acupuncture's LLC was IMMA.
That was your original? That's interesting. Okay.
It was on my original list to the point of I have a brother and sister-in-law that are very good at business and I've like used them for they'll coach me when I go through challenges. I could call them or meet with them and talk through any challenge and they always give great advice. I had told them about this business name and I remember my brother-in-law saying, you should do it. It should be IMMA. And I was like, no, I can't because also I was like, I don't want to be just for the Jewish community. I want to treat everyone. I don't want to be exclusive. And I love women's health, but I'm like, I don't want to turn down if a man wants to come. It's like, it was like I was just in such survival mode. And so a few years go by, after 5 years, basically, I'm like, I really want to rebrand and like be unafraid and be unapologetic of who I am and who I want to treat. It's like, it's not bad to say that I want to treat women's health. The funny thing is, with IMMA, we still treat tons of men and people, and we treat everybody. You don't have to be Jewish to come to our clinic at all. We are for everyone and every family. So it didn't even end up limiting us at all. But if anything, I think it helps attract, for our next stages, the things and the programs we want to run, I think it helps attract the right clients for that. But I met with my brother-in-law like 5 years into my business, and I'm like, I'm really thinking about rebranding. I know it's crazy. There's so much paperwork and so many annoying things to change the name of your business. And he's like, I know what you want to name it. I'm like, you do? He's like, Ima.
Ema.
And he remembered that conversation from
That's
5 years
so cool.
before. And that was the
Wow.
sign to me of like, it made such an impression on him. And I'm still thinking about this name.
Wow.
So I just went for it.
That's so cool. I love that I love this story of how it wasn't just a idea, you really thought about it. There was different stages, and there are different stages in your business. There's different chapters, layers, like things happen, they're supposed to happen at that point. You grow, you pivot, you rebrand. Like these are all real things that business owners go through, and then I
Yeah.
think a lot of people either are scared to do or scared to talk about it. Like it's just not
Yeah.
it's not the pretty picture, like
No.
this is what I had at the beginning and it worked. Like that's not
I
reality
think
at
any
all.
business owner would, should say there's no pretty picture. It's like,
Yeah, there's no pretty picture.
yeah. I saw this funny thing too on social media where it was like, I really wanted like flexible hours, so I started my own business. So
Cute.
now I only work 24/7. And I'm like, yep.
So accurate. So accurate. Quickly before my next question, why Ima? What does it mean to you?
Oh, I love that question. So Ima to me is like this archetype of a Jewish woman.
Yeah.
And that can mean a million different complex things, like in terms of like nurturing people, guiding people, accepting people. So all the things, but also a good mother like disciplines and is real,
True.
right? And so to me, Ima means like we care about you, like our clients that are coming through this door, like we care about you, but not in this fluffy way, in this real way. And when you're doing
Yeah.
something that we think can be hurtful to you, we are here to help you see that
Right.
too. And so often people go to their doctors, like this is just a silly example. It's like, you go to your doctor and they tell you like, oh, we got your blood, you have high cholesterol, like here, take this pill. Or there's no coaching of like,
Yeah.
what is high cholesterol or what is high blood pressure? What does this mean? Can you reverse this yourself? Like, are you responsible some way for this? You don't need to live like this. Like, I really try to challenge people with their pain because everyone has a story around it. But it's like, you do not need to live with this. And maybe the story that you're holding is not really serving you and not healing you. So I think that's mothering energy.
Yes.
So it's not
100%.
just like fluffing it up, but it's like being authentic, being real. And to me, just the archetype of a Jewish woman is just like strong, like
Yeah.
strong Jewish women, like and thinking outside of the box, being creative. Like I think about this story my grandfather told me before the war, being sent to a ghetto, and his mother. All the moms in the town were giving their kids material items, which we know what happened. They were taken from them.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but my grandfather's mother made food packages for all her kids and gave them food for the ghetto. That's what they went with. Like forget the clothes and the items and jewelry and whatever they had. They went with food, and that's how they survived the ghetto. Is because he's like, my
Wow.
mother was so smart that she baked us bread, and and other people starved to death. And
Yeah.
so to me, that is like the epitome of an Ima.
Right.
It's like you're scrappy, you're hardworking,
I
you're
love it.
strong, and you're soft and caring and nurturing. You're all of the things.
Yeah. I think like as I started this podcast a little bit more than a year ago, and through talking to I have an episode every week. So I'm talking to a lot of women, a lot of
Yeah.
Jewish women, right? And one of the biggest things that I personally learned, like selfishly, is allowing yourself to be all the things. Like being
Totally.
soft and being tough. So I love that you're saying this because like people who are saying this are having an actual impact on people like me. Like it's really changed my life where I can now like talk about the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
Like hold both in my life. Like I can be both or I can be all, you know?
And I think that is balance. Like I think sometimes
Yeah.
the things that we think are so unbalanced about ourselves aren't. Like,
Right.
like in my house, like I do the finances, I do things that are traditionally like masculine or whatever, but it's like, but I also like will cook a Shabbos meal, and it's like
Yeah.
that's
I
fine.
think that's
Like
beautiful.
yeah.
I think it's what makes us interesting. Like we're not one dimensional, you know?
We're all so complex. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, I had so many more questions for you, but I think we could take 3-4 hours. So I want to just end off by asking you if you met Zahava when she was, in middle school or whatever, and the Zahava that was being told, you have a learning disability or you're not going to make it, and the voice is going in and through your head. Like, what do you think she would think of you right now?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. There's this like real, like my gut reaction to this is kind of being like, I knew it. Like,
I love that.
where I do think that there was always this pilot light that I had
Yeah.
that probably came from my ancestors, truly, like of
Yeah.
just the generations before me, of like keep going, like keep, that's like the Jewish spirit, if anything else,
Oh
is
yeah.
like resilience and keep going.
Yeah.
And, in the face of adversity, people are going to tell you things, people are whatever. It's to me, I think even my younger self knew all along that I could do it, and I had to go through all the challenges,
Yes.
to figure it out. But I think that she would be like, yeah, I knew this all along.
Queen of tenacity, right? Bringing
Exactly.
it back to that. I love it. So, Zahava, thank you so much. I obviously, what you've created, like the business you've created, is amazing. But I also, as a Jewish woman and the host of this podcast, I think it aligns so beautifully with everything that I stand for and this podcast stands for. You're resilient, the tenacity you hold, never giving up, changing if you have to, pivoting, all the things that are not the pretty parts, but end up making like the thing that actually looks pretty. Um, Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. This was so
Thank
fun.